What's up, guys? It is Aaron from Evolve Health and Performance, and we are here with episode number 2 of the Purple Ice Cream podcast. I am so excited to be bringing Claude Vaccasin, owner of W10, and to be honest, this guy is probably responsible for the majority of the burst of SGPT gyms across the UK. We're lucky enough to have been one of the sort of early operators that joined the IFBA at the time. Which has now sort of evolved and grew and transitioned into something quite insane for JSC, and the level of his business growth from personal trainer right through to selling for 7 figures, right? So for me, that is a process, that is a journey. I think if you're a personal trainer watching this, if you're a gym owner watching this, you can really appreciate the level of work, sacrifice, skill sets and knowledge that have had to be acquired to make that a reality. So thrilled to be joined by JC here. Today's podcast for me is just about really trying to hone in on how people can ask themselves better questions and how networking with better people who can sort of lift you up will give you the ability to lay super strong foundations in your business, in your life, and basically live more on your terms. At the last meetup, Jesse, you spoke about living half your life in France and half your life, obviously, in the UK. Now, you know you're in a position to do that now, but that itself, as an overarching goal for me, was really inspiring to hear something like that, because I think it's the level of work to even be in a position to make that a goal and a target is insane. Like, I love that, and I think what I want to do is sort of try and chip away at your journey and sort of show people, gym owners and personal trainers that are watching this, how they can scale, how they can grow, and most importantly, how they can develop and deliver a better service for the people that come into contact with their product and services.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, first things first is that, you know, from a personal training to where we are now, I have done something that feels quite significant.
Of course.
But And the end goal for me, we talked earlier about, you know, setting 1, 5, 10-year goals. My 10-year goal from the age of 40 to 50 is to be able to live half and half in France and the UK.
Yeah.
But by the time I reach that stage, that will be 25 years in the fitness industry.
Scary.
So whilst it's when you get there and you see somebody who works half and half and that feels like something quite seismic, actually, if anybody set themselves a 25-year goal to be able to work 6 months in the UK and 6 months in France, everybody could do that.
Yeah. In
a much shorter space of time than I've done it in.
Yeah. I think for me, like, what I'm really attached to is just the level of, one, the standards that you operate at. There's not a gym in the UK that has the standards that W10 are at, and that's from my experience of everything I've seen. Not only that, but it's the level of what goes on behind the scenes off the gym floor, and I think that's what people are going to appreciate the most, as to how you have strategically managed teams, how you have developed the product, how you have scaled to be a multi-site owner, and how you've actually made an exit, so to speak, from the business. Because I think the majority of fitness business owners have no long-term plan. There's no sort of strategic way on how to get to from where I am to where I want to be. So again, trying to sort of shed some light on how people can close them gaps is going to be really cool. So with your early days, you know, coming into the industry, why fitness? What made you come in to become a brick and mortar business owner?
I mean, I had a previous life. So I was working at the time I worked in a pub when I left college, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Carpet fitters lad, pub, did odd jobs, and then I got given a job by my uncle at BT. He was then in the management team at BT, and a job that I shouldn't have got, wasn't qualified to get, didn't have the experience to do, and I got a break. And I was a store manager for the BT shop in Hounslow, in London, at 19. And it was just sink or swim.
So I was like, who you know, not what you know.
Yeah, so I got a really lucky break at that age, and I did a couple of years there. Then I got promoted from within 4 or 5 times within 2 years. I got a regional job. I then got headhunted by Halifax Bank of Scotland, and I went and worked as a bank manager, believe it or not. So I was an assistant bank manager at the age of 23, and then I got a regional sales manager's jobs for Halifax Bank of Scotland in Thames Valley. working across 6 sites, driving sales. And I hated it. I was really good at it, but I hated it. And I was the youngest in there by about 10 years of my peers.
Yeah.
So I was miles, I was there too early, basically. And they were going through a big transition. They were going from a building society into a retail bank, and they wanted salespeople in there to make that transition. And I represented someone young, plucky, driven, but I really didn't enjoy it. And one day, one of my friends, a guy called Johnny Barrett, was playing rugby at Wasps, who I went to school with. We played rugby together, and he said, "I'm injured. My rugby career, I don't know how much further I can go. Do you want to set up a personal training business?" And I was on my lunch break, and I said, "Yeah, fuck it, let's do it." And I walked in at that lunch break, handed in my notice, and said, "I'm leaving today." And
what was your salary back then, just for context?
I was on a base. I was on about 70 grand a year.
To do that from PT from nothing in itself is a
So and I think if I'd stayed in that environment, I probably would have done really well.
Yeah.
But I was just sitting there every day trying to deal with people who've been redeployed from mortgage roles into sales roles. There was no targets, there was no drive. It just was a really weird environment for someone of that age who was sort of motivated to be in. And I could just see myself being in an environment that was institutionalized, where people didn't see work. It was a 9-to-5 environment. People were sort of holding their own position. There wasn't really much of a team dynamic locally. It just didn't really join up to me at the time, and I didn't know why. But what I did learn from that, especially from my time at BT, was systems, standards, processes, because you're part of a big organisation.
Invaluable skills.
So the shop floor was always spotlessly clean. There were checklists, there were audits, there was all sorts of stuff to give structure to the business. And I think when I did become a brick and mortar operator, I took those things forward. So anyway, I left. I quit that lunchtime, and I took a sabbatical from work. They said, "Look, take your time, think about it." I went and did a Premier Global course, and I never went back. I finished my course. I started I had an original PT business, which I sold initially. It was I started door to door. Then I spoke to a tennis club, said, "Look, I'll do your evaluations for you, your inductions, just give me the space. I'll do the PT." So I built a business. When we got married, I sold that business. And then when I came back from New Zealand, we lived and worked there for a couple of years, built up a client list in 6 months coming back. And then my first goal as a brick and mortar operator was just to get out of the gym I was working in. I didn't have a vision or a plan I had literally no fucking idea where we were going to take it. I just knew I didn't want to work in that mainstream gym and wear that t-shirt.
Yeah,
that's how it started.
I was a bit like that with the gym I left as well. It's you want to represent.
There's absolutely no way that I can say that we had a plan.
Yeah,
because we just didn't, and over the next couple of years, we just gained more clients, and we employed some PTs, and we paid them 50%, and we did 1-to-1.
But I think though, like, not having that plan was okay because of the level of, 1, skill sets that you had, 2, knowledge that you had from being in corporate, and 3, you still had drive and tenacity about you.
But I genuinely just wanted to train people.
That was it. That's class.
It was good. We had a great time doing it. We used to kick the shit out of people. It was an electric gym floor. We would turn up. Even then, the floor was spotless. The towels rolled. It was we were professional. We were in a shit unit, but we did it. We did the best we could with it. We charged a premium rate, and we went all in on it. But there wasn't an exit. There wasn't. There was no one there. I'd spent some time with Alan Cosgrove, who was the first step in evolving that from a 1-to-1 into a small group model. So that's what sort of gave us the inspiration, if you like, to go and do it differently, because we did get to a stage where we knew it wasn't going to be scalable. I had an income figure in mind that I wanted to earn. I said to myself, I want to earn 100 grand a year. That's my number.
Yeah.
And I got to that position, but I was working 60, 70 hours a week. I had 2 young kids, or 1 young kid initially, then 2 young kids, and I was never at home. I missed the mornings, I missed the evenings. I moved around the corner from the gym, so I could sort of do the middle of the day, but I was so tired that I was just sort of flaking out. So I said, look, I earn the 100 grand, and then I've got to do it in a way where I don't have to work for every hour.
Yeah.
And that was why the small group personal training thing appealed. It's like, look, we can actually build a scalable business out of personal training.
Yeah.
And it was Results Fitness and Alan Cosgrove that gave us the inspiration, if you like, to say, well, okay, well, they've started that, and it was the first person I'd ever seen that could do it differently.
How many years ago did you fly out and see Alan?
10
years ago.
10 years ago.
We
were laughing about it the other day because he, obviously the IFBA's kind of had its day, but he was then talking, might be 9 years ago, he was then talking for us on the IFBA. He's done two keynotes for us in the IFBA Live, so it sort of went full circle.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's great.
At that time has disappeared as well.
Yeah, and I've also, if Alan's listening, I have the right to argue with him about things that we do and don't do well. But he was genuinely the first person. I was like, actually, I could see the limitations of one-to-one because it's a fantastic career, but you have to. All you can do is charge more.
Yeah.
Because there's no other. It's time for money.
Yeah.
So you're effectively selling your time, and I was just like, I want time. You can get paid in lots of currencies, and for me, there are three main currencies. There is time, there is money, and there is fun. And I have to get paid in all, or at least one of those currencies. Hopefully two of those at any one time for it to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I was doing at the time what was then my financial goal, but I had no freedom. I had no time. And then of course you do that for long enough, it's not fun.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is making money. So I realised that actually I could probably do that for a while, but that wasn't a long-term plan for me.
I think that's what happens when you get yourself oversubscribed. You end up building a business that you hate.
Yeah, and I think that's because you don't, and that's when you start to think about what am I in it for. And I think you've probably I had to, and I think most people have to get to that stage. Because what I see now at the moment, you've got the rise of the small group PT mentor and people trying to help people find their why and scale their dream. But you sort of have to get to a point of not knowing what you don't want before you can really get clear on what you do want.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think for most PTs, it's just go and train some people, get really busy until it's shit, and then work it out.
Yeah, which
is what I did.
Yeah, 100%.
And now it's difficult. It's more difficult to do that because everybody's thinking about, well, I want to earn a certain salary, or I want to work remotely, or I want to. But the fact of the matter is, for most people, and there's different ways of doing it, but for brick and mortar operators who effectively run a service business, they definitely just need to get going. They just started.
Yeah, just literally get the ball off the ground. So brick and mortar owner today needs to focus on what?
There's
at very early stage.
Product and service and experience. That's it. You don't need systems. You don't need processes. You don't need to focus on marketing. You don't need team development. You don't need leadership skills. You just need to make sure that every single 50-minute block is fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Literally.
And I don't know how you break it down. And I think if you're I think I've sort of said if you're doing less than 20 grand a month, it should be driven by product and service and experience.
Yeah.
If you're doing sort of less than when you get to the next stage, I think then you're getting into team development and system and processes and financial reporting, KPIs, because you're at a stage then where, at the start, in terms of finances, it's like the paleo diet, just do the basics and you'll lose some weight. And then you need to start to track your macros. You don't need the most elaborate KPI tracking system when you've got less than 100 clients.
True.
Most people can count to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think once you break the sort of, once you're up to sort of towards you're over 50 and towards your 80 grand a month, then I think the focus can, you still need to do the things that preceded it, but you need to think about, leadership and strategy and long-term vision and exits and things like, raising finance and partnership agreements and exits and stuff starts to become real. So I think there's different things that you need to focus on at different stages of life, but at the start, just be really good at your job.
Yeah, 100%. It's like take your craft as this is what puts food on the table. This is where I need to completely enhance my skill set. This is where I need to be an expert in my field. And
that for me comes down to two things. You need to be technically good.
Yeah.
I remember going through a phase, and I don't want to sound like that. I remember back in the day, but you used to be on courses every month. You should spend a lot of money on your own professional development, and you really took it seriously.
100%.
I wouldn't say that's true necessarily of some of the newer breed of coaches.
No, definitely.
They want to work online. They want to train people for 6 months and then become an online coach.
Yeah.
I just don't think it works like that. Not successfully, not long term. You need to be really good technically. So you need to know, you need to be a specialist, an expert at what you do, and you need to be a good communicator. And yes, you can learn about communication from books and from podcasts,
practical application.
Just be around lots of different people.
Yeah.
And get used to overcoming objections and dealing with unreasonable people, and finding out who you want to spend time with, who you don't want to spend time with, who you operate best with. Developing self-insight is probably the most important thing that any of us can do, full stop.
Yeah.
So I think, at the start, it's on you. It's about creating a good experience.
Amazing. So what interests me the most about you is the level of decision making. So like, again, just for me looking inside of all the back end stuff that we're doing now, it's like, how did you know when to hire this person? How did you know when to put this system in? How did you know that it was the right time to take, that second facility? Because I think that's what you're very good at, identifying when people need specific things. And it's like your superpower.
It probably is now.
Yeah.
But that's probably that is a product of having made the mistakes.
Yeah.
We opened a second facility at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't put systems in place. We've hired loads of the wrong people. We've hired loads of the right people and done a really shit job for them.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out. So we've made a lot of mistakes that now have forced us to look at things differently through going through the process. And that's the old cliche of, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. The first maybe 3 to 5 years, everything we did turned to gold. We made money, we trained people, we got loads of good press. It wasn't until we started making some fuck ups that we started to really get good.
Yeah.
Because we started to think about what we were doing. You don't, until you get put on your arse, you don't know where to look.
Very true.
So
that's very good.
And it's not a hard. We've had a really good run. We've been really lucky. We've done mostly good things. But I think what we've always done is embrace the learning. We've never sort of been deterred by making fuck ups. I've always understood that that's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a really good support network around me at home and teams that I've had to sort of make that a thing. But now, we're experienced now. We've been doing this for quite a while. I think now it's about planning. I think first things first, if you're going to lead a business and lead a team, you have to make decisions. Which sounds pretty obvious, but most people don't like making decisions. They don't like making hard decisions, and they don't like getting stuff wrong. By very nature of making lots of decisions, you're going to make some of the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
That's okay.
This thing comes full circle into the importance of having someone, like for me, my university degree is from someone that left school at 16 with nothing, because it wasn't intellectual, just didn't give a shit. But for me now, like, learning is, I need to learn from people who have made mistakes, a lot of mistakes, but who equally have done more good than bad because they've learned from their mistakes. So I think, like, most personal trainers and gym owners, you talk about like reinvesting in their business, reinvesting in themselves, building skills, building knowledge and all that. I feel like it's very difficult for that to happen if they're not actually actively consuming information that's going to help them shed light on blind spots in their business, to help them zoom out, to help them become better leaders, better communicators, and people who are actually able to deal with their finances better as well.
Yeah, I think planning is really important. We've talked about this quite a lot. I think now the reason we make better decisions is because we're much clearer about what the vision is.
Yeah.
So we're much clearer about where we want to be in 1, 5 and 10 years time. So if we're clearer about where we want to be in 10 years, and to be clear, that will change, what we do in the next 5 years will make more, is underpinned by what we're doing, where we want to be, and what we have to then do this in the next 12-month period. That all lines up with what the long-term vision is.
Yeah.
So I think, and I'm really diligent about that, and I review that every year, and we work in 3 cycles every year, and we really do pin our decisions and our behaviours to that thing. If that end goal, that 5 or 10 year plan changes, which it has recently, that's okay. Just rewrite it, but at least have something to anchor your decision making and your thought processes. And in terms of your point on learning from others and consuming information, and I do wholeheartely agree that we need to do that, all of us, and continue to do that.
100%.
Because a lot of people talk about maintain a black belt mentality for white belt mentality for learning. it's just bullshit. They don't actually do it.
Yeah.
On the flip side, though, I would counter that very strongly with be careful how much you consume and the sources from which you consume it, because there is so much information out there.
Oh, yeah.
You literally don't know if you're Arthur or Martha.
No, but I think the big thing is when you're consuming content, be intentional with the content you're consuming. Be intentional with the people that you're taking content from. If I'm taking content from 30 or 40 different sources, the reality is that I'm consuming tons of information that's probably all conflicting. If I'm taking information from 3 or 4 sources where I know that is probably the gold standard for information, and I'm careful with what I consume and I'm careful with what I implement in action, that's only going to lead to a clearer path, a clearer vision, better decisions, and hopefully massive impact from them decisions.
But ultimately, whatever you consume and wherever you go for information, it's only going to be as good as the questions you ask, those people or those sources, or that you're asking yourself. And you will ask better questions if you are much clearer on what your vision is.
Yeah.
Most people just go, I want to consume some stuff. And I'm sitting there, for me, I'm like, well, yeah, I need to consume some stuff, but what's my vision? Where do I want to be? Who and what do I want to be, and where do I want to go? Where are the sources that can help me specifically in those areas? What are my pain points? What questions do I need to ask? Where are my gaps? Also, have I got people around me to show me my blind spots, which you've got tons of, and then it makes it easier for me to sort of go to the right places to get the information, as opposed to just blanket consuming, and gorging on information, and it not being directly related to what I want to do.
Yeah, it's the questions with the information. Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm not interested in how long you can hold a straight arm plank for.
No, which is not very long.
Right, this is a good question. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this. Trends and predictions in the industry over the next 5 years.
Well, we know that the industry is forecast to grow by 5% in the UK. So at the moment, we've got a penetration of 15% of the UK population have a gym membership. I think in the US, that's 26 or 27%. So we've still only got a fraction of the people using gyms. Mm-hmm. That is forecast to grow to 20% by 2030. So, which is a significant amount of growth.
Triple.
And I think that's lowballed. I think it might happen more quickly. So, we'll have 20% instead of 15% of people using gyms, we think, by the end of 2030. Those people are not going to be existing gym goers. They could be converting outdoor exercises, or the increasing aging active over population, 50s. The over 50s, or the non-gym going public. And I think the gym society has changed. It's diversion and inclusion. We need to. I think we need to make the gyms more welcoming. I think this move towards performance and functional training, and whilst pretty sexy and very Instagrammable, maybe has moved us further from the client, the end user, the mainstream end user. And I think that gap will become increasingly big. So I think our spaces need to evolve. I think our messaging needs to evolve. I think the industry needs to become more approachable, become more adaptable. I think we need to become more aligned with the medical profession. I think there needs to be a move towards a more 360 approach. Now, that doesn't mean that I think a brick and mortar training gym needs to offer sleep therapy and mindset coaching directly, but it might be that we do some of those things. Yeah, we might partner. The collaboration, I think, is going to be a big thing. But I think that the training gym, if I stick to the training gym of the future, is going to be one that is a bit more well-rounded, a bit more cerebral. So a bit less about performance and grunt, and it's just gonna have to be more welcoming.
Just a more sophisticated model that's far more client-centric at the front from the minute they walk through the doors to the minute they have issues in any area.
Yeah, I think service and experience are whilst online's going to grow, right? The online AI, metaverse. I don't pretend to have a single clue about anywhere any of that goes. But what I do think that the more that becomes, that grows, I think the more people will want brick and mortar. I could have a drink on Zoom, a pint on Zoom. I could I could have a pint at home on my own, but I don't. I go to the pub.
It's environment.
Because I want the environment. But I wouldn't go to a shit pub that was dirty, full of wallies.
100%.
Right? And it's the same as a restaurant, same as any brick and mortar space. It's going to be about the overall experience and the community, the environment that I am in. And I think we're going to have to pay particular attention to that. But I think we're going to have to sort of just change our tone a little bit. I think we will need to professionalise. I think we will need to become more like members clubs that do weights as opposed to gyms that don't pay much attention to the finer points in inverted commas.
But that's a cooler place to belong. We're like a members club. This is an exclusive club. This is where the ex-athlete in that older population can come and belong, where it's okay to have a few beers and still train. And I think people want that community, especially off the back of COVID and off the back of having that taken away. And now we start to reintroduce exercise and reintroduce a really high-end environment that people want to go to. If you want to go to the gym, which is alien to, I would say, the majority of people who have gym memberships, it completely changes the outcomes.
We're still, 100%. We're still massively intimidating to most people who are not in the gym world.
Yeah.
We just still don't recognise that. Particularly the training gym, we think that we even if we've toned down. Now, if you're a powerlifter or an Olympic lifter, you're going to be in those environments. If you're a bodybuilder, you'll be in that environment. You don't want to be somewhere with funky wallpaper and beers in the fridge, because that's not training to you. But actually, for most of us, we're working with the general pop. It's been a health pandemic, so people are going to have one eye on wellness and health. That is clear. Generation boring coming through are spending more money on fitness and wellness, more percentage of their disposable incomes going on themselves, and self-care and
Generation boring.
Well, nobody drinks, nobody takes drugs, nobody does anything wrong. It's like they ride fixies and drink espressos. It's fucking boring. I feel sorry for them in some ways, but I think that there's just going to be a move to just sort of a more considered, more experience-based model, and I don't think that's just about gyms. I just think that's every brick and mortar service-based business, and I think that won't just be about training. I don't necessarily think we need to become an all-encompassing one-stop shop. I might be wrong. Now, I can see a world where we take bigger spaces and where we put a cafe in there, and we partner with, or we've got a multi faceted wellness center. So you've got Evolve, and you've got a yoga pod, and you've got and that's already starting to happen. And you've got a breathing therapy, and maybe there's a doctor's on site. So it's a one-stop shop for wellness, within which there is a gym. I can see a world where those sorts of collaborations or those sort of things starts to happen, and they may not be one business or one brand. It may be different brands or different businesses coming together on the same park. I think there'll definitely be a move towards that. In the very short term, for us, it's going to be about evolving the brand. It's going to be about improving the experience, about getting behind our team, making the spaces a bit more fun. Like, we've had a shit period. We're actually still in a bit of a shit period. Like, just make me smile.
Yeah.
Let me walk into the gym and make me smile. And be that with something on the wall or a message or something that the member of staff says or does or wears. Just make me smile. I want to train properly. Don't get me wrong. The product has to be rooted in science, and we have to be really good at our jobs, and the coaching session has to make sense and join up, and we need to be professional, but the wraparound needs to be fun. It doesn't have to be so serious. One of the potential pitfalls of this whole move towards wellness and 360 might be that we start to just get a bit up our own arse a bit.
I say a bit more pretentious, but it doesn't have to be.
Come in and we will make you sleep, and it's like, listen, I just want to train and get some energy out of me and meet some people. And I think we need to be careful we don't overplay this sense of community as well, like leading at the front. We've had this now with Foundry and W10, where people ultimately join a gym for yourself. I'm a fat bastard. I've got low energy, or whatever I feel low about myself. I want to go and fix myself. The community bit comes afterwards.
The community bit comes when you're comfortable in the environment, when you know this is the right place, these are my people, and I feel like I belong. If you don't feel like you belong in your environment, you're going to leave that environment. Like, you talk about your transition from, leaving a great job to go and pursue something else. Like, you obviously, the biggest factor coming through for me was I just wasn't happy in the environment. The people weren't my people.
Yeah, and I without you can't make it oppressive. You've got to give people what they want at the time they want it. Some
Yeah.
people just want to walk into a gym, they want to train 3 days a week, not think about it, follow a program, get out.
100%.
Some will be at every social, they do all the bits, they want all of this stuff that we want to sell them. A lot of others don't. Actually, what we've, for now, and this might change, but what we've realised, at least for now, is that we thought we were going to have to invest heavily on an app and online and digital support and a wraparound and at-home services, and actually we've stripped it right back and said, we're really good at brick and mortar. We're really good at providing experience inside our building. We can support you outside of it, but actually if we just dial down on being really fucking good for that 50 minutes 3 to 5 times a week, we're gonna thrive as a business.
Yeah, for sure.
Stop trying to be everything that everyone else is trying to do. You
Yeah.
just keep it simple, keep it friction free, and be really, really, really good at what you do.
Like that, keep it friction free. That's really good. Right, this is going to be funny for me. There's two-part questions, and you don't need to name anyone because I don't want that. But like your favorite gym turnaround and your most successful gym turnaround to date, and what that sort of looked like, and then the nightmare gym turnaround, and to one that maybe was just a shit show from start to finish. Like what for you? What was your like highlights and pitfalls?
I've seen some gyms. I mean, we've worked with a lot of gyms.
Yeah.
I've seen some do really poor. Not many. Do a pretty shitty job. Mostly because the person that's running the gym is probably not the right personality. You having a bike doesn't make you a cyclist. It's not like having all the tools to run a gym is not going to make you a successful gym owner.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
So there's been a few that perhaps have struggled, and I think that's mostly about leadership and communication. Mm-hmm. And maybe those people are so into training, a bit more introverted, would be better suited as online coaches or one-to-one coaches. And there's been a fair bit of that because there's been that sort of natural progression. I've been a good personal trainer, I'm fully booked, I'm going to open a gym. Well, they're not the same things. So you've got to be careful that you just don't think it's the next natural step, because for some people it really isn't. You'd be better off just being a PT and doing a really, really good job at doing that. Get a studio rather than a gym. And maybe even have other trainers pay rent to use that studio, and cover your costs in that way, and just be really good at what you do. Be clear about the hours you work, charge a bit more, and just be exceptional as a one-to-one PT, and or do some online stuff. Maybe opening a gym with a team that's multifaceted with lots of members is not for you.
There's a lot of moving parts to it.
So I've seen a few of those come through, and it's not my job to burst people's bubble.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So there's been some of that, and I think that's a mistake that perhaps is being repeated by a lot of personal trainers. You've got to be careful that you don't just blindly move into that. You've got to ask yourself what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
There's been some guys that have started from scratch that have followed the things to the T that I've worked with closely, who've absolutely smashed it.
It's the likes of, well, obviously on the successful end of the spectrum, it's fair to say that like Ollie March on.
Yeah, March on. I guess George Bramford at Intent 91. At Steve Miller at AMP. W10 itself has done okay.
No.
There's a
Niall.
Niall. Do I have to drop you into this?
Of course.
Yeah. Evolve in Antrim. So I think there's a few gyms that have gone on to do. Yeah, and there are probably 20 that are knocking it out of the park, and they're the ones that maybe are more known on social media and make more of a fuss about it. But equally, there are gym owners, like Niall and like Noel Flynn at ABC, and Mike McDonald in Aberdeen, who runs a superb 200 member gym. Tim Reed, batshit crazy Tim Reed in Northampton, but unicorns and rubber rings and crazy haircuts.
Works.
But he's got over 200 members, and he's charging double what people in the area are charging, and he's smashing it.
Yeah.
So which is amazing to see.
Yeah, that's for you, being part of them journeys, and it's not just the journey of the gym, because it's not that. It's the journey of impacting their families' lives, impacting the lives of their kids, like the relationships, like all because the business is firing on all cylinders. Like it creates a better life. Yeah,
there's a gym in Guildford in Surrey called Field of Fitness, who John and Dan there, who I've known for some time. They were doing one-to-one. They sort of couldn't get their heads around the small group thing. We worked together through the IFBA. They built that business up. They now do stuff around golf. But I was at their 10-year anniversary at a black tie do, and they asked me to give them an award. I met their partners, and I was just like, this is brilliant. I mean, ultimately, we haven't done any of it. They've done it all themselves. We just said, here's what we did. Like, take it and see what you can do with it.
Literally.
And hopefully, some people can go way further and quicker than where we went. So, and I don't know. I don't know if there's been anyone that I've looked at and has been an intense failure, and if there has, I probably would rather not
go there. No.
But there's been loads.
What then? Okay, let me frame that differently. So, what encompasses a gym that's on the path to failing, like for you?
I think there's some guy. I don't know if I've seen any gym fail, because I think actually that could be the best thing that happened to some gyms. What I do know are some gym owners who are. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. They're not making money. They're working all the hours. They're fucking exhausted. They don't see their families. They're not moving forward. They are trapped in their existing infrastructure. So if I had an extra 2,000 square foot and if I had an extra 200 grand, I would build the gym of my dreams. But for today, I'm stuck in this 1,000 square foot place where I have to do all the hours. I can't afford to bring in staff. I don't have a marketing budget. But they've been there for 2 or 3 years.
It's a prison.
They're stuck. And they get tired, and in the end they get cranky, and and I think a combination of stubbornness, because I think there's a difference between drive, resilience, and just being stubborn.
Yeah.
And I think we are in an industry that's full of type A people. It's a high drive, addicted to action. I remember laughing with you once. You said, "What, you're telling me to do nothing," and I was like, "Yeah, you've just done loads of things. Let it percolate." And you just looked at me and you were like, "No, I'm not doing that." It was like I need to do some stuff. I need to take action, because we're addicted to taking action, because we're that type of person.
But I think that's what's came with the age now, though. Is like we've spoke about. It's like actually being able to have a bit more patience and see the bigger picture. And there's not a chance I wouldn't be thinking along them lines if it wasn't for my daughter. Like, that's give me a different level of control, a different level of long-term thinking, a different level of people management. Like, these are all critical pieces too. Forward.
Having kids is huge. We talked about that earlier, but I think to go back to those that are sort of I'd rather fail having a go, and I think these people should either close the doors and just start again and do something different, or invest in it or get an investor or do it differently. But to sit in that pocket and just think if you just keep working hard doing the same thing, things will change. They won't.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many hundreds of gym owners there are in that position.
A lot.
There are a lot. And you look at me like, dude, just do it differently.
Have a go.
I think they genuinely are having a go every day at 4:30 a.m. when the alarm goes off.
Yeah.
But how long can you do that for until you just fall over and you hate shit? And then you go back to how you're getting paid. You're not getting paid in fun. You're not getting paid in freedom, brackets time, and you're not earning enough money. You could probably earn what you're earning. I know some gym owners who could probably earn more doing one-to-one PT and work half the hours and be way happier.
Yeah. I was actually speaking to Darn. And Darn's in the process, obviously, of signing like a 7-figure lease, which is insane. But I was like, if you were to start again, what would you do? I'd probably just be a PT.
Yeah. I think the problem with in inverted commas, just that being a personal trainer for me is you can make a fantastic living, you can own your own diary, you can do. It's a real good job.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a consult. If you treat it as a consultant job, I hear a lot of things. I don't want to be a 40-year-old PT, and I used to say that myself, and now I sort of say, well, what 40-year-old do you want to be?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a 40? But you don't want to be a 40-year-old PT. Why?
Yeah. Well, what's the alternative?
Well, it's not what's the alternative, but what's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's not something. Yeah, like fitness has evolved so much. You don't need to look down at someone who's still a coach at 40. Like some of the best coaches in the world are like what Thomas Plummer. Like, what age did he retire? Like last year, 2 years ago?
And it's not even about like looking down. It's like, what more would you want than just getting up every day, helping people, keeping your own diary, making money, having freedom, being in an environment that keeps you young and fit and healthy,
wearing sweats to work,
wearing whatever the fuck you want to work within reason. I think there's just I think it's changed, and I think that's born out of this trajectory. I'm a one-to-one PT, and then I'm a studio owner, then I'm a gym owner, then I'm scaled, then I'm exiting. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be like that. Not everybody's going to work well along the continuum.
Yeah.
So I just think we just need to be honest. I think some of that's about what's the end goal, and that's the sort of the 1 year, 5 year, 10-year planning. Because I think for some people the best thing that could happen is that the gym did go under, because it would just force them to start again.
Yeah.
But it's that because we're resilient and we work hard and we're stubborn as a population, and also we're a bit egotistical. We don't like, and I think in the UK in particular, you don't like failing because I've failed. No, you didn't. You just had a period of learning. Now just move on and get on, do something else and do it. You could just do what you just did, but do it better.
Yeah, 100%.
Or learn that that's not what you want to do and do something different.
Yeah, 100%. Like you have the ability to move and pivot at any given time.
We say this to the staff. It's like every day you have a choice. You have a choice every day to do whatever it is you do or don't do. No one enforces anything on you.
Yeah.
If you wake up a lot of days and you feel like you're you're against your will, you don't want to be up at that time. You don't want to meet Bob at 6 o'clock because Bob's a dickhead and he drives you nut and he negs you out, and it doesn't matter what Bob pays you, and just you have to make choices that are in keeping with what you want to do and who you want to be. And that's not. I don't have my shit worked out. And I don't mean to sound preachy, but you don't have to do if this industry is not suited to doing shit you don't like long term. It's so energy dense.
Yeah.
If you don't have passion in this industry for what you're doing, that doesn't mean, and passion doesn't mean you have to love every minute of every day. You do have to shovel some shit, but you if you start to sort of your energy dwindles to a point where you're not enjoying it anymore, just get the fuck off.
Yeah,
go and do something else.
100%. I've seen it with like a lot of PTs and a lot of gym owners as well. Like sometimes it is just the right move for you.
Yeah. And it's okay just to say, well, I've just moved in the wrong direction. I need to move sideways.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to move backwards.
Yeah, very true.
It's fine. Like, do it differently.
Yeah. So, a couple of things to finish on. Want to talk on this because I feel like this is really important. But like, we obviously spoke a lot on planning today. We've built some stuff out today. If you're a PT or if you're a gym owner, again, just thinking about planning now. Like what are the one or two things that you would say like these guys could do this exercise at home and have a lot more clarity for doing it?
If I'm starting out, I'm just training people. Like we said at the beginning, I wouldn't overthink anything. Right. I'd just go and just focus on the experience.
Okay. You're a training gym. You've been open for 12 to 24 months. Not quite sure about the direction you're headed. What is that? Like, what are the three nuggets?
Yeah. I think first things first is I would sit down and I'd be very clear about what my vision is. Where do I want to be in 10 years' time? People find that exercise really difficult to do. And I think in part because they think that they're going to have to hold themselves to that. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if I set out my 10-year vision, well, that's me fixed for the next 10 years. It's like, no, you are allowed to change your mind. But as you sit here today, where do you think you're going to want to be in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
Personally, professionally, physically. Because physically, I always include physical in our industry because we most of us start because we like training.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. It's not just a personal and professional; it's a physical thing. Because it's very common, and I can speak firsthand, to let your own shit go, concentrate on your personal and professional, and you all of a sudden you look and feel like a sack of shit.
We've all been there. Like, if you're in the industry watching this, you've probably been there. You've probably let your training get to the point.
Yeah, it's like you've made it when you've earned the right to be your own client. So I think where do you want to be in 10 years' time? Now that could be working half and half somewhere else. That could be paying off your mortgage. That could be having a certain amount of time freedom. Just get really clear, and maybe they're not just your goals. They're the goals of your partner, or and I think get clear on what the 10-year vision looks like, and then work back and then in 5 years, where do I need to be? Where's halfway?
Yeah.
So this year, what do I need to do for the next 12 months to take the first step towards that 5-year thing, which feeds into that 10-year thing?
Yeah.
I whether it's 1, 3 and 5 years, or whether it's 1, 5 and 10 years, it doesn't really matter. I think 5 years is too short. I think 10 years is difficult to do because it's far away and people don't think that far ahead. But just practically, it's much easier to take the next step today if it's just part of the 10-year vision. So I think that's a massively important thing to do. I think then the second thing is get clear on your numbers.
Yeah.
So have a weekly KPI reporting framework, do your monthly management reports, and make sure you work in your three. I work in 3 cycles throughout the year, or quarterly cycles, whichever you prefer. And plan, do, review. It's the cycle of action. Go through that cycle of action.
How important for you, obviously, doing the V1 with Alan, like actually having that business plan? How important is that as part of the business so that your KPIs match up? Because I spoke on KPIs before, but it's like, if your KPIs aren't based on an actual business plan, they're not as relevant. You'll not see, for me, and this is speaking from experience, like I didn't see the benefit of doing it because it wasn't attached to an actual business plan, which was in line with this is where we want to go long term. So KPIs just become, this is a ball ache. I'm just having to track these numbers for tracking these numbers.
But we were talking earlier about, a certain vision, but you could have, let's say that in 10 years time, you want to have 5 gyms, right? And you scale, you let's say that by the end of but you want to, you've got a gym today, right? And you've got 100 members to go to get that to capacity. So you want to hit that target in the next, let's say 12 months. Be a punchy target, but let's say you want to hit it in the next 12 months. Then at that point, you want to open gym number 2, but your goal is to get to 5 sites over the next 10 years, right? You can still be planning for that 10-year, 5-year thing, but today, you still need to make that 50 minutes the best 50 minutes it is. You still need to follow that sales process. You still need to plan within this 12 months. So I think you need to work in parallel. You need to do what you need to do for the next 12 months, but also anchor that and always have that sort of longer term vision in mind. Because I think, having KPIs, it's like being 100 kilos. What does that mean? I'm 100 kilos. You could be an absolute animal, but you could equally be an absolute fat fuck. It doesn't make any difference unless you've got some context and what you want to do. So I think without an anchor, KPIs are pointless.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and I think that's why people struggle to put them together.
I agree.
So I think know your numbers and know your vision. Know your vision, know your numbers. I think the third thing I would do is just make sure what you're doing is and it's going to sound a bit naff, and I can't believe I'm going to say it, but make sure you're having fun.
Yeah, fulfill them.
Yeah, make sure it's fun. Make sure you're getting up most days and having a bit of fun. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 second that you don't do anything that's not fun, because that's bullshit. But if you're spending too much time doing things that, if you're not enjoying it, or you're doing things that you're not enjoying, either outsource those things, or get other people to help plug those gaps, or do something different. But just make sure the process is enjoyable. But I guess from a practical standpoint, have a vision, know your numbers, and in knowing your numbers, I'm gonna separate it is make sure you go through the cycle of action. So have a vision, know your numbers, go through the cycle of action, because when I work with people, they can set a business plan up, and they can build a system, and they can have a KPI reporting framework. What they're terrible at is reviewing their plan,
What's been happening?
evaluating their performance, and going again.
Yeah.
Plan, do, review. So make sure you go through that cycle, because most people set a plan, set some KPIs, and they just get about doing, and they just implement action, and they don't stop for 5 minutes to go, hang on a minute, here's what I'm doing, congruent with
what I want,
my plan, and is it feeding my vision?
Well, that's the thing. If you're just doing and not reviewing, you're leaving yourself wide open for problems to happen, because you don't have your finger on the pulse, because you can't actually see what's happening next. Whereas them KPIs providing framework and data to fix issues in the pipeline of the business.
Yeah, and I think there's a few people I know that use things like the profit first model, where it's like you're in 20% profit at any one time, if I remember rightly. But for me, it's like, and they run their business in that way. So I'm always want to try and keep 20% and scuffle it away. But for me, it's like, well, if my 5-year plan or my 10-year plan is such that I need to invest some of that money today to build an infrastructure to get me to site 2 or to do certain things, then maybe I won't be in profit this year.
Yeah.
Maybe most of what I make this year will get reinvested, and that's okay, as long as I'm earning what I need to earn.
So that's sort of, I've asked this question to a few people. Actually wanted to ask it to you. It's not on our question list. How did you get comfortable with like reinvesting, into the business, where it becomes like this is
didn't take a single penny out until 7 years for W10. Just got paid a salary.
So it was all just
and I got paid a trainer salary for 7 years.
Yeah.
Everything went back into the business, and it still does.
So comfortable with the vision though that you didn't even question it.
Yeah, but what would I have done with the money?
Yeah, you'd have fucking wasted it.
Yeah, and I did some of it, but for the most part, I didn't. That wasn't about that.
Yeah.
It was about, right, where can we take it?
Yeah.
I remember doing some work with Nick when we had the 850 square foot industrial unit in Ladbroke Grove. I remember being 3 years in, when we first started the small group PT model, said we want to scale this business. And we want to move sites, and we want to, so our next phase was to get to 3,000, 4,000 square foot and have somewhere that would do 250 members, because that was where I was going to earn my 100 grand within that model.
Yeah.
And I said, well, in order for us to scale this, in order for us to be significant, we're going to need our people are going to be key. So I remember at that time, which must have been, I don't know, 9 years ago, paying Nick Grantham a 5-figure sum, to come and do staff development with us. He put it was called the PFCA. He and I then set up a thing called the PFCA, the first iteration of that, and we said we're going to have to invest in our people. At that time, I think we had less than 80 members, and I think I can't remember rightly, but it was somewhere between 10 and 15 grand I spent for Nick to come do work and put performance programs in for our staff, create an in-house training system for us, because I knew then that was going to be the bedrock of the business.
Without the people performing,
that could have been our profit that year, and I could have gone on holiday with that. But I knew at that time that was going to be a key thing, and we needed to invest in that.
It's amazing. That's amazing. It's so relevant, though. It's so relevant. Like most gyms aren't willing to put that personal sacrifice in, and for me, that's going to be the demise of a lot of gyms, because they eventually, the time's going to pass, the bank account's going to slowly but surely not grow and scale, your costs are going to go up, and there's an that inevitability of, as a brick and mortar facility, your lights will go out.
Yeah, I think it was easy for me to do that at the time because I was very clear that we wanted to scale. And I knew that was going to be a challenge. So it wasn't really up for discussion. It was just something we had to do. So I think we were clear on the fact that what the next step was. So it made it easier, like the big steps. It made it easier for us to take that decision. And I think maybe the biggest factor, you have to, for most people, you have to get in flow. You have to be, the learning sometimes is as important as the earning.
Yeah.
And I think,
love that.
And I think you if you're in a situation where you're making money but you're not progressing,
that's an uncomfortable. That's a very uncomfortable.
I'm just not sure if you're a young person. Like, I think by the time you're in your 50s and 60s, that's where you're going to make your money later on, right? Most owner-operator business back in time, it was second or third generation that actually made the money.
Yeah, very true.
We think we can be rich and millionaires in 2 years. Which is really, so some people will do it and they will be unicorns. Those people are doing it now. Honest people are making fortunes online and in person. But for most of us, most normal, averagely talented people who've just got to work, it's going to take time and it's going to take learning, it's going to take mistakes. And I think you just need to make sure that you're in a state of flow so that you're learning, you're growing, you're enjoying it. And eventually, if you do enough of that for long enough, that you will make enough, you will make the money.
It's amazing. I absolutely love that. I am going to close on that. So, to find out more about JSC, to find out more about how people can work with you, like how does that, where do we find you?
I guess my website, it's new for me because it's changed, jcv.inc.
Okay.
That's it. That's obnoxious enough, isn't it?
Well, and just your gyms, so their Instagram on your gyms, because I know there'd be guys wanting to check out.
Yeah, so obviously W10 is no longer, so we're now part of Foundry. So at Foundry Fit, so it's quite an exciting project happening there. It's 5 sites across London, new branding, new facility, Alaco partnerships, and
very cool.
We're hoping that that is going to be that is the next step for us. So
you're going to see Foundry trailblazing the UK market, and it's this guy who's behind it, largely the driving force and the decision maker. So keep a close eye on what they're doing. If you're in London, you have an opportunity to check out a Foundry site, absolutely do that. JC, an absolute pleasure. Someone I highly respect in the industry, someone who's added a lot of value to my life, to my business, and I just want to say I appreciate you, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
Of course.